all good.
Right?
stand as we have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take this time for us to approve tonight's agenda. I need a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mrs. Berg to approve the agenda. To have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have on our agenda. Tonight we have, starting us off, a recognition of the Lions Club.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, members of the board, tonight we want to recognize the Amherst Lions Club. We have with us tonight, I believe all of y'all are here. If I miss somebody, let me know. Mr. Ron White, Miss Ann White, Ms. Robin Davies, and Ronnie Unruh. And so I'll say a few words, and then y'all can come forward, or you can come forward now if you like, and I can go ahead and while I'm saying this. But the Lions Club this year screened, as those who don't know, they do vision screenings for our students. So this year they screened 1,166 students, and 192 of those students were referred for eye doctor appointments due to the screenings. They have volunteered 90 plus hours with us this year. They have a screening machine that is a little older, about 10 years old now. And so they're trying to get that replaced. And they've received a grant through the Lions Club, but they're also trying to get the other $4,100 in matching funds. So we are going to try to work with them to figure out ways to fund that either through grants or through some organizations. Over the last 5 years, by doing these vision screenings, they have saved the school division at least $15,000 by partnering with us on these clinic visits. So they do a great job supporting our students and supporting our school divisions. I just want to personally thank them for what they've done and for their hours doing that. So that being said, we have a certificate of appreciation from Amherst County Public Schools. Proudly presents this certificate on December 8th, 2022 to the Amherst County Lions Club for providing vision screenings to the students of Amherst County Public Schools. Thank you for your dedication. Signed, William Wells and Abby Thompson. So.
Good camera. We'll break.
No.
Y'all want us to stand or be out of the way, or what do you want?
It wasn't a wide angle lens, I'm good.
That's right.
Thank you to each of you that's with the Lions Club. We really appreciate what you do for us and for our students and your partnership. Dr. Wells, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to open up now a public hearing concerning our 2023-2024 school operational budget. Is there anyone that would like to come and speak to us tonight concerning that budget? Okay, seeing none, I will close the budget hearing. And I know that we
Need
are...
a motion now.
Pardon?
Need a motion to close the
sorry.
hearing.
I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Madam Chair.
I have a motion to close public hearing. I need a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Rossi. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Session is closed. Now we are moving into our public hearing, public comments from the citizens. I think before we do that, Dr. Wells, you had something you wanted to add?
Yes, ma'am. Just like to make a comment to everyone regarding some information this week. And again, I usually don't respond to social media posts. As I understand, some use these platforms to vent their frustrations and or share information with others on their feed. However, I've had several staff and community members contact me over the past 2 days regarding a post made by a parent that I felt I needed to make comment. I support free speech, and people have the right to share information on various social media forums. People can say what they wish about me. When I accepted this position, I knew that went along with the job. However, I can't sit by when people post information about the school division and/or my staff. As superintendent of Amherst County Public Schools, I've been entrusted by the school board to lead this division and ensure that we provide a safe and supportive educational environment for our students and staff. I take that charge very seriously, and I've expressed my expectations to the faculty and staff of the school division. If I make a mistake, I hold myself accountable. When students or staff make mistakes in judgment or behavior, I expect them to be held accountable for their actions. As a school division, we do our best to deal with those mistakes in an appropriate manner based on the seriousness of the offense. However, we cannot share decisions regarding students or personnel with the public. I would ask that if parents, grandparents, or other persons feel that they need to report something, please report it to your principal. And if that principal does not deal with that, please report it to my office, and I'll be glad to intervene. I will also say that no one is perfect, and as human beings, we are prone to mistakes. The leaders of the school division work hard every day to realize our shortcomings and improve. We have devoted our professional lives to providing an education to our students and serving our community. In the Bible, Jesus states in John 8:7, "He that is without sin among you, let him cast a stone." And the golden rule is stated at Matthew 7:12, "Therefore, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them." I wish people would reflect on the meaning of these passages and apply them to their own lives. As a school community made up of students, parents, staff, and community members, we need to work together to solve the multitude of issues that we are facing on a daily basis. Spreading hurtful or inaccurate information only serves to divide us instead of uniting us. As a community, I would ask that we do our best to work together to find common ground so we can continue to do work that will benefit our students and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. Before we go into our public comment period, I'd like to remind everybody who is going to be speaking tonight that you are asked to address the board, that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and that not to mention any student or employee names. Instead, just say student or staff member. No other identifying information. I will reiterate that what Dr. Wells has said. If you have concerns, please contact your school administrator. If you need to go further, contact Dr. Wells. In the same vein, you can also contact us as board members. And we're happy to sit and work with you because this is a team effort. So as we open tonight's public comment concerning school matters, and again, there will be no additional comment period at the end. Thank you, I almost forgot this. To lead us off, I'm going to make a public comment statement about our ESSER grant. Amherst County Public School received in 2021 a total of $7,301,689.84 under the American Rescue Plan Act. The purpose of the American Rescue Plan, ARP, Act, Elementary and Secondary School Relief Funds, or the ESSER Fund 3, was to assist school divisions in safely reopening and sustaining the safe operation of schools while addressing the impacts of COVID-19. Amherst County Public School was required to address students' academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs in an ongoing division plan. Every 6 months, this plan goes under revision with feedback from all stakeholders. Notices to the public asking for input were sent through School Messenger, social media platforms, and an intake form on the division website. The current plan is posted on the division website homepage, along with a survey for feedback that can be filled out by Amherst citizens at any time through the grant period, which is through until September 2024. If anyone would like to provide their comments directly to the board regarding this plan, we will also take them at this time. Board, this has been provided with you in your packet as well, and I think Dr. Norman will address it also a little bit later, but wanted to make sure the public was aware of that. Okay, tonight, leading off for public comment, the first name that I have is Kathy Beck.
Right here.
Come here to the microphone.
Yes, and when you come up, if you will just state your name and your address. right there and you look at us.
Okay.
Yeah, you address the board.
Okay, I am not a public speaker, I'm not a politician, so I can't lie good. I'm just here, I'm a 66-year-old grandmother, I have a 5-year-old grandson at Amherst Elementary, and my husband and I, Jim, have 4 children that have gone through the Amherst County Public Schools, okay? And I'm not real familiar what across the board the Virginia School Board is doing on this curriculum about opt-in or opt-out. And that's what I read in the newspaper and what I'm going to speak about. So anyway, I'm going to tell a little bit of story, but don't count my time yet. Just, have you started? Okay. Okay, I don't believe that government and laws can delegate morality, but government and educators can guide sensibly persons in their care. Storytelling time for me is going to be, is included in this, and I'm using my cheat cards here. So I won't go down a rabbit trail like my husband says I do often. So we moved to Amherst County in 1994, and we've been taxpayers for 30 years, using the Amherst County Public School System educating our 4 children, our oldest in special education, and the other 3 in regular classes. Our youngest got his diploma in 2008 with the help of Dr. Ed Hopkins, who we highly regard, and he has since retired. He was excellent and encouraging. I'm here tonight to speak on common sense, and it is let's educate our children and not indoctrinate our children while their minds are fertile. Their minds are fertile now. They're like mush, right? We need to focus on discipline of the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, so they will be prepared to function in a world of commerce. Let's let nature and childhood take its course. I've got 2 stories to tell. I've got a 5-year-old grandson at Amherst Elementary Kindergarten, and we have a vested interest, of course, in him. The first week he came home from kindergarten, he told us the name of all the pretty girls, all the pretty teachers, and the kids who went to the principal's office. No one had to instruct him in gender appreciation. For him, he knew the difference. Again, let nature take its course. When ready to explore his attraction to the opposite sex, the listening ears of parents, guardians, caregivers will guide him in the understanding of human development. He certainly doesn't need detailed instructions on sexual component of his puppy lover crushes. Again, let nature take its natural course in due time from kindergarten to 4th grade. Let's skip to 5th grade when we begin adolescence. We all were adolescents at one time. True? Agreed? Was it a stressful time? Yes.
Excuse me, Mrs. Beck, just remember to address the board, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't like to
That's
disclude.
okay. Doing a great
Okay.
job.
We all have peers and we compare ourselves. We're vulnerable. Am I fast enough? Am I going to get picked for the softball team? Am I smart enough, or do I look good enough? So our job as educators and parents are to guide and encourage them through the rough patch of human development and increasing their self-worth. Okay? Again, how? We go back to the 3 R's. The big part of this, reading, writing, arithmetic, because knowledge is power. Kids still look up to educators and parents, and because teachers become a substitute parent as they explore the world around them away from home. A side note, social media and influencers on social media are here to stay, unfortunately. We must be reminded that personal relationships with adults, parents, coaches, and educators still influence our children and the development of their minds.
Mrs. Beck,
It's already done?
yes, but you can always email us, or you can give it to the office and they can send us your comments. You're
Okay.
certainly welcome.
Okay, I'm willing to go on, but,
Thank you.
okay, Kathy Beck, 181 Glenway Drive, Amherst, Virginia.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker we have is Ruth Warner. Ruth Warner. Okay, she's not present, so we're going to move along to Rachel Martin. Okay, Mrs. Martin is not here, so Mr. Porter.
My name is Jeff Porter, 478 Woody's Lake Road, Madison Heights, Virginia. I am speaking concerning the proposed revisions that are found in item 5.01. These, in that memoranda that I'm talking to, is on page 2, and it's item C, which says, informs parents of the right to have their child use upon request in non-punitive manner alternative instructional materials that do not include, which do include sexually explicit content. So far as I have knowledge of the opt-out form with the Family Life Education Program, I don't know if any other classes or teachers are using this form. From what I have heard, from one parent, I heard her child was in the class, but she found out about this opt-out form from a friend. As I understand it, there's supposed to be a mailing which happens 30 days prior, and apparently, at least with this situation, it had not. My rationale is that if a teacher or a person is considering using such material, they should gear the instructional time, which does not include the sexually explicit material, as alternate content. Once again, we believe that parents and community expect public school instruction to provide wholesome, edifying, and age-appropriate materials. Sexually explicit is not the societal norm that we want to affirm or gloss over. Therefore, it should not be considered so. Public schools, I believe, must promote wholesome and edifying teaching materials. And therefore, I would urge you that as you consider this issue tonight, to think of what I have just said to you. Now, in the midst of all this seriousness, I have something to also say. Merry Christmas to you all.
Thank you, sir. Merry Christmas to you as well.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Merry Christmas to you. Okay, I believe, Mrs. Martin, would you like to come and speak? Oh, yes, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Martin, and I am here to make not only the school board aware of some very serious issues, but the parents of Amherst County students as well. My daughter is an 8th grader at Manellison, and this school year something has changed. This year she has had her life threatened, bullied, and been sexually harassed. When she had her breast groped, she went to her teacher and told him, to which he replied it was an accident and to go back to what she was doing. This was without speaking to the other student. My daughter was also involved in an incident at the October pep rally. A student became angry when asked by other students to scoot down, and he threatened to stab and kill my daughter while punching the wall by her. He was on camera punching another wall while storming out. A staff member told me he saw some kind of disturbance but never checked to see what happened. As reported to me, this child is known to be violent and is autistic. The fact that he was allowed to be without an aide during a loud, chaotic event like this is nothing short of negligent. My child and her friends reported the incident, but when the staff member called home, it was downplayed to stabbing with a pencil by him, claimed no one had told him of the death threat. He told me that day that the boy was harassed by students on the bus ride home who wanted to know why he threatened her with a pencil. He told me he wanted the student to feel safe in school and also wanted my daughter to feel safe. Bully first, victim second. He told me my child's friends were a bunch of loudmouths and implied that they had caused him to become angry. After emailing him that evening, he called the next day. I told him I had spoken to several students who said they had reported it, and it caused him to remember one other student reporting it. A few minutes later, he denied this again until I reminded him that he had already admitted it. He had his superior call me, and during this conversation, he gave me a Virginia state code and said I'd be unable to press charges against the student like I wanted to, since he threatened her without a weapon on his person. He told me that a resource officer gave him the code and told him this information. I spoke with this officer yesterday, and he said he did give this code, however, he never said I couldn't press charges. The staff member was rude, condescending, and belittled me in a way I've never experienced. An appointment was then scheduled with another staff member for November 2nd, in which we discussed everything. He said he would start an investigation of my allegations and would call me November 5th to let me know how the investigation was going, and would update me until it was closed. I never received a call or email until this Tuesday, 5 weeks later, when I posted my story on social media and emailed him letting him know. His response to this was, "Mrs. Martin, I urge you to be careful with accusations that are not accurate regarding individuals considered slanderous. I am here because everything I've said is true. I'm sharing my story with the potential threat of being sued because I care about my daughter and every child being bullied at that school, whose complaints are falling on deaf ears. My social media post response shocked me. I had countless parents, grandparents, as well as past and current Amherst County employees share similar stories and
Martin.
complaints."
Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, before we close public session, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yes, come up and state your name and address, please.
Good evening, Board. I'm Sam Soger, District 2 parent. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. I just want to let you know I'm here representing parents who have faith in you, who trust our superintendent and our school principals. And as was stated in a meeting a couple months ago, the teachers are looking out for each other. Veteran teachers are looking out for the rookie teachers. It's open door. So the idea that there's rogue actors, sounds silly to me. That there's a robust system of checks and balances that goes on in Amherst County Public Schools. I've volunteered in the schools, and for what I've seen with my own eyes is a very well-behaved student population, really awesome teachers who are looking out and have these students' best interests in mind. I trust my students' principal and guidance counselor and the teachers. And so I just want to let you all know that I'm here representing a lot of parents that feel that way. And when it comes to this question of opt-in or opt-out, the way that I see it, and I think a lot of us see it, is that a parent or guardian in Amherst County can opt their student out of anything they want, any material they want. And opt-in is going to potentially prevent a family that, missed that email from them reading, a Steinbeck novel or something like that maybe they wanted their student to read. So I think that there's already a system in place, opt out. They could opt their students out of whatever they want. And I think a lot of what we've been hearing the last couple of months in these meetings is a lot of much ado about nothing. And if there are issues, well, let's cross that bridge when we come to it. But as far as I can see right now, we can trust our school system and have faith in them. And that's what I want to let you all know, that I'm here to represent those parents we're good with what's going on. Our students are learning. They're working on the 3 R's. That's all they're working on as far as I can tell: reading, writing, and arithmetic. So thank you very much, ACPS, for all that you do. Appreciate y'all. Peace and love.
Mr. Sogar, thank you, but before you leave, can you state your address?
He did his district.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
District,
district.
okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak before we close public comment? Okay, I need a motion to close public comment.
Motion to close public comment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Rossi. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, now we're moving to 5.01, discussion and consider approval of the proposed revisions to Amherst County Public School Policy Manual. And- Dr. Wells?
Yes. Madam Chair, members of the board, so with the policy, as you are aware, if it's mentioned in previous meetings, the General Assembly in legislation requires us to have a policy in place regarding sexually explicit materials by January 1, 2023. So we have given you a draft of policy IIA, which would be the policy with on this. And Mr. Maddox was going to speak with you tonight about this because he's on the committee, and Mr. Greiser is a school board member on the committee. And they must have been something that committee this past week when they met, because both of those individuals are not able to be here tonight. There's some illness going around, as we all know. And so anyhow, they're not able to be here. So I'll ask Dr. Norman to speak regarding the work the committee did, and I'll chime in too as necessary. Dr.
I'm
Norman.
going to try to fill in as best I can. You have in your onboard docs the information from Mr. Maddox regarding what the instructional committee, materials committee that you established did on your behalf, and this is their recommendation to you. So they had several meetings. I think it was 6 total meetings where the committee got together. They reviewed the law that came down from the state legislature. They also reviewed information from the VAS, the model policy, the VAS policy that was sent out, and then our current policy, and pulled all of those together. What they have submitted to you is a recommendation to adopt policy IIA and IIAB, which are from the Virginia School Board Association and the model policy that they actually submitted to us, and to take that in full. And then they also submitted to you for a request to adopt the regulation that goes along with that policy, which is the regulations and procedures for IIAR. And that is from them. So one is written through the Virginia School Board Association, and the other is written from the committee that was specific to your request to review materials. The only thing that gets approved by you tonight is the one for the policy, and then we'd like your feedback on the regulation, so that Dr. Wells can have guidance from you as a board to implement that as stands.
And Dr. Norman, I'm not sure if the regulation was actually attached, so we can get that to them to review. I'm not sure if it was attached to them from our end up here.
It is, looks kind of like that. So it was in the packet that I gave you. I don't know if, so it's called Instructional Materials Regulation and Procedures, IIAR.
I'm not sure if we
Okay.
attached it. So
Sorry.
we can get you that information. Ms. McNerney can share it with you at this
You
time.
have 2 pieces of paper in front of you.
Well,
Is it on that as
Come
well?
in.
Board docs? Okay.
no, all they have is IIA, all they have is the policy.
So we have IIA and
IIAB.
IIAB.
Correct.
Okay.
And IIAB is just our regular policy with an additional sentence that's been added,
Correct.
just requiring teachers to follow policy IIA if that's adopted. So, board members, what is your pleasure tonight? Do I hear a motion? Do you want to have discussion? Mr. Terry?
I'm good with what's presented.
Okay. Mrs. Ligon? Mrs. Burke?
Just trying to catch up with what's going on right now with not having the other one with us, so I'm trying to.
Right, okay. Mr. Rossi, do you have any thoughts?
We're approving not the actual revisions, we're just approving the policy, is that what I'm?
So what's in front of you is the policy IIA, which states
Right.
that we have to notify parents within 30 days if there's going to be sexually explicit material covered in class. Parents have the right to opt out of that. So the building principal, if there were a case where this would happen, which is not very likely or not very, frequent that would happen, the building principal would send a letter home to the parents stating that this is information, there'll be information regarding whatever book or whatever they're covering in class, and therefore, the parent would have the right to be notified of that, but also have the right to opt out of that assignment with a different assignment.
And the parents also have an opportunity to review material, I understand,
They can review material at any time.
at any time.
Yes, sir.
So they don't have to wait until the 30 days or anything like that. At any point, they can review any of the material.
If it's available.
Correct.
Right.
The only time that we don't put it up on the website or there's a link not there is when it's copywritten. But they can come into the building at any time and ask to look at textbooks, materials, anything that a teacher uses in the classroom.
That's all material. What about supplemental materials also?
Any material that will be used in instruction covers in this.
It's
So
covered.
So parents have the right to review everything.
if they so
It's
choose.
completely transparent. I'm good with that.
I have a quick question. Why would we have sexually explicit content anyways? And
Well, as I think Ms. Justice stated earlier, there were some library books that, according to her research, that were considered to be on that list of material that could be considered sexually explicit, so that was in the library. The Code of Virginia just requires this, so that's why we have to have a policy in place. Some of our AP classes may, due to the content of those things, have material that is maybe fall in that category. I guess it's up into interpretation of, but looking at Code of Virginia, what those standards are. So I can't sit here and say that it's every classroom has things, but there may be materials that could fall into that category. Some of the classics could fall into that category based on what is written.
So the way that this was actually brought up through legislation is based on the family life education. Many people have placed that on their websites or it's made available to the public, but not all school divisions did that. So we have always allowed for an opt-out process. We've always provided curriculum in regards to our family life. We've made that available to parents, but not every division did that. And so in order to make sure that all divisions met that criteria, because there are sexually explicit curriculum in with the health and physical education standards, age appropriate, that the content that's taught in there, as well as the supplemental materials that's used in instruction, parents have the right to review that. That's how the whole policy came before legislation. It didn't target library books until later on, and they've kind of combined both of them. This particular policy that you're supposed to have in place and approved by January 1 is specific to instructional materials in the classroom.
Madam Chair,
Rossi?
so when we defined sexually explicit material as sort of a red flag for parents, so that in the case it was used, it was defined on what that would be. Is that the way I'm understanding it? It's not that we use it, but it is defined, so when the alert does go out,
They would know what it is. So, and the definitions, actually, the Code of Virginia requires it, and in our policy, it states what the state definition of that material is, and it's written in the policy. So it talks about nudity, sadomasochistic abuse, sexually explicit, and so forth. It's in the policy, as you read, so all that stuff is detailed as to what that would be. And if it were a case where a letter had to go home, it would be what falls under that category would be listed in that letter, so parents would know what it is that their students may or may not be reading.
Thank you.
One of the concerns that I actually have two, is that this policy, while I know it is adopted by the VSBA, and it's a response to the governor's model policy, telling us we have to have something in place. And so I know that's the heart that this was done with. But one of the things that I feel, and I think a lot of our citizens feel and parents feel, is that our school system, as Mr. Porter put it, need to be providing wholesome, edifying, and age-appropriate materials. And I believe, as Mr. Sogar said, we are doing that. So one of the concerns I have is that this policy doesn't set that standard. You know, if there was an addition to it, somewhere up near the top, that said we're responsible for providing the selection and use of instructional materials, and that we will be providing wholesome, edifying, and age-appropriate materials, but should instructional material, if instructional material were to contain sexually explicit, such as in the classics, then we have a policy in place. So I just feel that our intent is missing from this. The other piece that I have a little bit of a concern with is I know that this is addressing instructional material and supplemental material, but the policy that we're putting forth is not addressing non-instructional materials. And that non-instructional materials, I believe on good faith, will be addressed in the regulations, but we're responsible for policy. We're not responsible for regulation, we're responsible for policy. And so I don't see that accountability in this. And I've said that at our last 2 board meetings, that I had hoped our policy would have some of that in there. And I know Mrs. Justice, who is not with us, and I myself believe that we should have an opt-out an opt-in as opposed to an opt-out, just because you could have a student participating in sexually explicit material if that were to be the case, and a parent would find out after the fact. So my personal opinion is that I think the parents need to be the ones who say my student will be in these lessons if that were to come. But as a school board, that's not our goal. Our goal is to provide wholesome, edifying, and age-appropriate materials. So those are some of the concerns that I have. I think it definitely hits the minimal of what we need to have based on the governor's directions and based on the VSBA. It's just a very generic policy, but nothing prohibits us as a board from going above and beyond this. But those are my concerns, and I may be the only one. So anybody else have any comments or motions?
Madam Chair? Yeah, I'm definitely with the opt-in for notification and for parents to choose to take their child's education down that path, if they see fit. I know that some parents are perfectly capable of educating their children in certain subjects, and they should have that option, and to be aware of it and have to opt into it if they choose not to educate their child the way they see fit. And that'll bring out some accountability in that aspect. And I do agree with an opt-in versus an opt-out.
Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, I'm also in agreement with a opt-in, and in no way do I want that to reflect on my confidence in our teachers and our staff. But just with everything you hear going on, and, parents are busy, this and that. I know I specifically, every year when I enroll my daughter again, I look for those opt-out sheets to fill out for her for this type of subject, but I really would like to see it opt-in instead.
Any other discussion? Okay, do I have a motion to close discussion?
So moved.
I have a motion to close discussion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, board, I need a motion on it, to whether we will adopt policy IIA as stated, or whatever motion you care to make.
May I speak, Madam Chair? So I just want to remind everyone, if you could, if the opt-in is the route the board so chooses to take, you would have to make a motion to amend this policy. You would not approve this policy. You would have to not pass this policy. You'd have to make a motion to put opt-in as the way we will notify parents, and then you'd have to approve it with opt-in as part of the policy. So you just need to be aware of that. So just want to put that out there,
Madam
as
Chair?
opposed to opt-out.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Berg?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we redo this policy and put the opt-in option in there and vote on it then next meeting.
Well, I have to have this in place by January 1st.
Oh, okay.
So you can make a motion to include opt-in in this policy. We can put it in the policy if that's the board's desire, and then the policy passed with the opt-in option versus an opt-out option.
Motion to put that in the policy then with the opt-in versus the opt-out.
A motion that we adopt policy IIA with the addition of clarifying that there is an opt-in policy instead of an opt-out.
Madam Chair,
Rossi?
I'm not sure. Am I allowed to expand on her?
You can make an
There's
amendment.
a motion on the floor, so
Okay.
you're better off to pass that motion and then open up for discussion again for if you have further discussion, as opposed to amending the existing.
I second. Second the motion from, amendment from Ms. Berg.
Okay, I have a second. So we have a motion on the floor. We are open for discussion.
Madam Chair, so if we amend the policy as it is, it will take out the opt-out and place opt-in its place. Is that's what we're saying? I'm just
That's what,
making,
that was the
I'm just making
motion.
sure.
That's my
That was-
understanding.
that was the
Mrs.
motion
Byrd,
on the
correct?
floor.
That's what the motion, I'm just making sure that, okay. We're taking things out, putting things in, making sure we got it.
You'll remove the opt-out
It's
option
not as written, so I'm just making sure.
and make it an opt-in option.
Okay.
Have that added to the policy.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I need a motion on the floor to close discussion.
Madam Chair, motion to close discussion?
All right, we're closing discussion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second. From Mr. Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We now have a motion on the floor that we will adopt policy IIA with taking out the opt-out and changing it to an opt-in. Is that correct?
You have to vote on the motion to amend first.
Was there,
You made a discussion to add that as an addition, but you never, then you have to vote on to add to,
Well, I didn't think we had
Yeah.
a motion on the floor to adopt this as it was.
you didn't, so now we
We
just.
only had a
right,
single motion,
Right.
which was Mrs. Berg's,
Right.
which was to adopt this with a change,
Okay.
right?
yes, so that, we've had discussion on that.
Now you have to-
That's not an
Right,
amendment.
now you have to vote on that.
Now we have to
Correct.
vote on that. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? I'm going to ask one more time. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Okay, now we're going to go to our next item.
Madam
Consent
Chair?
agenda.
We haven't approved we approved the amendment. We haven't approved the whole thing, right? We just approved the amendment, is that correct? We didn't approve the policy, right?
That's what I
That's
thought we
what y'all
did.
Just did
That's what
with,
just voted on, was the policy itself.
That
with
was-
change,
You make a change to that then, remember?
Thought we were approving hers and then coming back to my change to hers. How did we pass that?
He just wanted to add more verbiage. I apologize.
Okay.
I've got to find it. I don't have my glasses.
Board, are you open to revisiting this at this time?
What are we revisiting?
I believe that there was a misunderstanding. Mr. Arasi thought we were voting on an amendment to the motion.
Correct, Madam Chair. I just think that your comment earlier about adding the accountability to the beginning of the policy was accurate, and we should have discussion on that.
Can you clarify the motion that we just passed?
The motion that was passed was presented by Ms. Berg to add. The motion that was passed, that was presented by Ms. Berg, was to amend the policy to add the opt-in in place of the opt-out.
Okay, so we passed the amendment that Mrs. Berg said. So it was my misunderstanding. I think you're on track.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so forgive me for misunderstanding and moving on.
Yeah, I want to amend and add the accountability statement that you made earlier in the beginning of the policy for the, you have to help me out with that one.
Wholesome content.
The wholesome
Before you
content.
make that motion, let's be clear what, so that I understand and I don't get confused again. Are you talking about the statement that I made at the beginning that clarifies our intent?
Correct.
Okay, and so stating that we have a purpose of our instructional materials being wholesome, edifying, and age-appropriate,
Correct. Yeah, age and appropriate.
and that if it contained sexually explicit material, then that policy would apply.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay, so I
And
need to
Ma-
hold one
Madam
second.
Chair, I just,
Dr. Norman?
I'm sorry about this.
That's okay.
So I'm reading back through it, and your motion, Ms. Berg, if I'm understanding correctly, was to change the wording from opt-out to opt-in. Is that correct? There is no wording of opt-out in IIAA, so you would not replace the wording.
You would add the word.
You would actually add that
That's
into
fine.
the policy.
That's what I was, and I should have said something, Madam. That's what I was asking him. I'm like, where are they reading that at? Thought I was.
So we were
I thought I had the
discussing it,
wrong
that's
form.
where I got it
Excuse
from.
me?
And when we were discussing it,
Where
that's,
is it?
Yeah.
well, when we were
So-
discussing it, we used that terminology.
Right.
That's where I
So
it's not
the
in there.
intent is actually in the policy. The policy at the bottom of the page where there's a process and there's a 30-day notification to parents prior to it. On the second page, it talks about non-punitive, alternate instructional. It's the third bullet where that is the intent of an opt-in or opt-out. But you would actually want to put that, if your motion is to replace the wording, you probably need to make it,
We need to revamp, yes.
do another motion.
We need to revamp that.
And you're talking about C?
Yes,
This
ma'am.
is what Mr. Porter originally talked with us about tonight.
Yes.
Okay, so let's revisit really quickly to make sure that we have this one straight, and then we'll talk about what your concerns are, Mr. Arasi. So, Mrs. Berg, could you give us a motion that would address bullet C?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to include the verbiage to opt in.
This is in the third bullet on page 1C.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's just say, I'm just make sure I have the right paragraph, a process by which principals will provide. That's a paragraph, yes, that's the one you're talking about, Ms. Berg?
Yes, sir.
In the C portion of that one. Okay, with that information that Dr. Norman noted, Mrs. Berg has made a motion that we add opt-in under bullet C on the first page, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that correct? Okay,
Suggestion?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr.
So
Norman?
bullet 4, so bullet 3C is the intent. Bullet 4, a process by which parents may change their decision, that's where you would probably want to put the opt-in. A process by which parents may opt in or may change their decision with respect to use. That would be my recommendation to the board.
So instead of the third, it'd be the fourth.
It'd be the
bullet
fourth.
point. Put it here, one more down. That would be fine. So it'd be the fourth bullet
So it
point.
would read, a process by which parents may opt in or change their decision with respect to the use of alternative instructional materials by providing written notice.
Yes, sir. Do I need to make it again, sir?
Yes, if you, it hasn't been seconded, so you need to just clarify what that motion is going to be.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we put the opt-in verbiage into the fourth bullet point instead of the third.
And that's the opt-in.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. A process by which parents may opt in or change their decision with respect to the use of alternative instructional materials. Well, that does have them oops. Before I call for a second, Mrs. Berg, can you read that bullet carefully and make sure that they're opting into the sexually explicit or are they opting into alternative instructional materials?
Gotta look at them all together.
Well, it's my understanding by reading it, that's what they're doing. They're opting their students to use optional. They have to, excuse me, you're opting, this states that they would opt into instructional materials as opposed to opting into the content.
Correct.
So a parent would have to write a letter saying, I want my child to have alternative instruction.
Yes, ma'am.
But I think
So-
that that's not what we're talking about. We're
Yeah.
talking about a parent having to write and say, I want my child to participate in the sexually explicit content, not the alternative
So
content.
that would be the third bulletin point, like
What I can,
Right. So
the original.
so I'm going to use family life as our example. The state requires certain standards to be taught, and we as a division are allowed to choose those materials and instructional materials that our teachers utilize. The content of what the standard is cannot be altered. The resources and instructional materials that we use to get that content across can be. Parents can opt children out completely of it in regards to family life, but when you get into verified credits of if I'm taking a biology class or a science class and there is a standard that talks about the physical body, and they have an SOL test on that, that is content that must be covered. We're required to give that. The instructional materials that are used, parents can opt those children out of utilizing those materials. I hope I'm clear.
I understand
Okay.
what you're saying. So does there need to be a policy for standards that are required by the Virginia Department of Education, or just the selection of instructional materials that reach that? To me, this policy does not specify the difference between the two.
Correct.
I would like to go back to the third bulletin point,
Okay.
because I think it fits in there better than the fourth.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Rossi?
so putting it in Bulletin 3 will basically opt them out of the class entirely? Is that what my understanding is?
It will opt them out of the actual lesson, so not the course. So if a lesson is taught that particular day, that child is opted out that particular day.
All right, and if that's in bullet point 3. So the difference between bullet point 3 or 4 would just opt them out of material.
well, 4 refers to the use of alternate materials
Alternate
as
material.
opposed to the instruction taking place.
All right,
So if you want an opt-in, if you want parents to have the ability to opt their students in, to require parents to opt their students into that material, then that's what it'd be, as opposed to parents being able to opt their students out of that material, of that instruction. And that's what you're coming down to now, is if a teacher is going to teach something and parents do not return the letter to the school, then that student cannot receive that instruction in that material because they did not opt their students in when given the letter, as opposed to instruction taking place and a parent being informed and notifying the school they want their child to be removed from that instruction, which is the opt-out. So let's make sure I understand the difference in the opt-in and opt-out and how that impacts the instruction.
I mean, I believe if within the classroom that they are developing content that has sexually explicit material in it, and let's just say a classic, they also need to be providing within their lesson plan an alternative to that with non-sexually explicit materials, anticipating they may have students participating one or the other. And if there's value for the classic that has the sexually explicit material, the parent needs to understand that value and say, okay, my child can participate in that. For me, if a parent is not, I'm not saying that the school doesn't inform them, but if that parent doesn't receive that information, then that child is receiving sexually explicit content without the parental permission. And that's what bothers me.
But, Madam Chair,
Mrs.
I hear what you're
Ligon.
saying, but, I mean, what you just said, that's really nothing we can do about that.
Yes, there is. We can do an opt-in.
Well, they opted, I mean, I must be reading this wrong. They automatically opted in on things, aren't they? Let's say we were here, I would either choose to be at the board meeting or not be at the board, and I'm using an analogy. So, when are you not opted in? You would have to, the parent would say, I don't want my kid to have, I don't want my kid. But, I mean, when would you have to opt in? I guess I'm confused. You're not either opting out. It sounds ridiculous, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. If something is being taught and you don't want your child to be taught that, you would opt out. Is that correct?
Yes.
But that's nothing else. Why would you say I want to opt in? It's already, you automatically opted in, aren't you?
Well, for me, I understand that, I don't know why we have
Reading
any
it wrong.
sexually explicit material in our schools.
I don't think so, but let me, and
So-
Madam Chair, I was looking at something great here. The superintendent or superintendent's designee creates and updates as necessary guidelines and procedures for the selection of the materials. The guidelines and procedures are designed to ensure that appropriate instructional materials are selected and provide an opportunity for the professional staff and community to participate and be informed of the selection. So that statement's already there. That's good. That's kind of what you all were saying a few minutes ago. But then, and I don't have a problem with the wording, but aren't they already opted in anyway?
Automatic.
Automatically. So, I mean, if we want to put an opt-out in here, and I'm, you know, that can be done. So the parent sends a note and says, I don't want them talking about Gulliver's Travels. But if you don't send the note, they're going to be talking about Gulliver's Travels. Unless I'm reading it wrong.
That is opt-out, but I
That's
think.
opt-out.
But I think what and I don't want to speak for the
But
for
no,
the
so
board,
tell
but-
me, explain to me the opt-in.
So the opt-in would be, we would notify
On Gulliver's Travels.
on Gulliver's Travels that we're reading Gulliver's Travels in 30 days.
Okay.
And in order for that student to be participating in the Gulliver's
You want a
Travel
letter written-
discussion,
You want them to say, to opt
the
them in.
parents would have to say, yes, they can read Gulliver's Travels. That's what the board is saying.
Madam Chair, I know myself and I believe Mr. Rossi and even you personally have received several letters in the past about materials that were available in the school and parents actually upset over that and not knowing that that was going to be presented. And I think it would be a service to our more of our parents if they actually knew that this lesson was coming up and they would have to agree to have their child being
Okay.
taught that
Can-
material.
Can I stop discussion for a minute? 'Cause you had a motion on the floor
I understand what you're
from Ms. Berg to put opt-in in section 3. We never had a second, so we really should never have gone into discussion until we had a second. So, so have a second to move opt-in, we have a motion to move opt-in into the third bullet point. Was there a second? They're going to move it back to
I
the
think
third.
that's why we don't have a second to it. Mrs. Berg was
Yeah,
determining
I
whether.
got confused
So-
with the
Place
third
it
and the
first.
fourth.
You were going to
bullet
place
point.
it, your last statement, you said was place it in the third.
Yes, and then she suggested the fourth, but I don't think it fits into
Right.
the fourth.
And you came back and said the third.
So what motion would you like to have on the floor?
Yes.
I like the third.
Your
Bulletin
motion,
point.
state your motion for the clerk.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to put the opt-in language into the bullet point 3. Sorry.
Second?
All right, I have a second on the floor.
discussion.
Now we can have discussion about adding opt-in on bullet C on the third bullet.
Madam Chair, how does that read? I mean,
I would have to draft something up that states that the parents would have the right to opt their students in to that material. So it's not going to read, but there'll be a statement added that would have to state that the parent would have to opt. Once given the 30-day notice, the parent would have the right, would have to opt their student into that instruction. That's something along those lines is what it would read. I can't sit here verbatim and tell you.
right, that's
But
fair.
I've got to make it in a legal format.
And Mr. Terry, since this is discussion, Dr. Wells could consider something like inform parents of their right to opt in to have their child participate in the selection of sexually explicit material upon request in a non-punitive manner. Alternative instructional material would be provided or something like that.
So I guess the question, and I'll refer to my staff on this as well, Dr. Norman, since we will need to have something written down verbatim as to what this policy will state as opposed to me creating it, because you need to have something verbatim as to what it would be. So therefore, we need to have it explicitly stated what that policy would be.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to continue discussion. Mr. Terry, do you have any other questions or comments?
No, I was just curious of how that, truly was worded in there.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I need a motion to close discussion.
Motion to close discussion.
Have a motion to close discussion, a second?
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we need to vote on the motion.
So what I need to do is I'm writing something now that I think captures what you're trying to say.
Thank you, sir.
So you can actually vote on the actual verbiage as opposed to just the term opt-in. So if you give me a second, I will try to write that. And Dr. Norman, I think, is doing the same thing.
So that works. I need a
Passing.
motion.
Motion to take a 5-minute recess?
Motion, take a 5-minute recess. Should I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll adjourn in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, recess is over. We are going to resume. I know that Dr. Norman and Dr. Wells have worked on the verbiage for us to consider before we vote. Dr. Wells?
So we, instead of adding it to to bullet 3 or bullet 4, we made it a separate bullet because it's a standalone bullet, okay? So parents will be required to opt their students into the instruction upon receipt of the 30-day notice. Students who are not opted in will receive alternative instructional materials.
Thank you so much, sir.
So now I need a motion if you want to accept that as the verbiage.
I'd like to make a motion to accept that as the verbiage.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Second?
Second?
Second, Mr. Rossi, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have, any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
So you've added that to the verbiage, now you have to pass the policy.
Now I'd like to pass policy IIA with the amended verbiage. I need a motion.
A motion to pass with the amendment?
Motion from Mr. Rossi. I need a second.
Second.
Second from Mrs. Berg. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Then we also had IIAB, which basically just states that the teachers will do what is stated in IIA.
Board, I need a motion on the floor for IIAB.
Make a motion to pass IIAB.
I have a motion on the floor to pass IIAB. I have a second.
Second?
Second from Mr. Rossi. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Took us a while to get there, but,
That's all right. We
Thank you, sir.
got where we wanted to be.
right.
And then the regulation information will be provided to the board members in January? or-
We'll send it
or
to
you'll
you.
send that out to us?
We'll send it
Okay,
out.
Thank you. Moving on to action item 6, our consent agenda. I need a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, we have consent agenda approved. Now we're down to informational items, update on administrative services.
Dr. Hoden?
Is this one work? There we go. Dr. Wells, members of the board, we had meetings with the teachers and the architect and Gary last week, and the teachers really appreciated their time so that they could give the input for the classrooms. All those meetings went well. And then we have a meeting on December 14th with the town for the public hearings on that. You want to expand on that?
Yes, like I said, as you know, we met with the town council and the planning commission last month to go through some public hearings as a formality, if you will, to get the property at 139 Lance Lane, the Amherst County High School, brought into their plans where it needed to be from a planning zoning standpoint. For decades, that hadn't been done, so we're just going through the process. We don't anticipate any issues there. Also, as far as the construction goes and the process, continue to meet with the architect. And the goal is to hopefully have the bid drawings and the bid out sometime in late January, early February is what the goal is. And then get those bids back and go from that process to see exactly where we're at. So they, like Dr. Hoden mentioned, we continue to meet with the staff, get their input, making some few tweaks in here, meeting with engineers, usually on a weekly basis, going through the schools and those type of things, and getting that process done. So it's moving along. We've also actually this week, as far as the house at 178 Lance Lane, the old quote Burley property, we're in the process of going through the demolition aspect, and that included the first phase of that was Monday. We had a contractor come out and do an asbestos study before you demo anything. So we have started that process this week as well. So we can go ahead and get that process moving too. And then, of course, any other questions as far as the high school goes? Then the next thing is, of course, the big project is the cosmetology equipment and the cosmetology lab at the high school. That equipment came in about 2 weeks ago, and I'm working with the contractor on that to have that installed over the Christmas holidays while there's no students in the school to prevent any disruption as much as possible. So that is being lined up, and we'll start working on that here, hopefully Monday the 19th once the students leave.
And this is the temporary lab that we're putting in place for the course, and as the new construction takes place, they'll get a larger lab facility under new construction.
Madam Chair, for the equipment, do we mean the sinks?
Yes, ma'am.
Yay,
This
thank you.
will include sinks, and I think there's 5 actual styling stations, if you will.
Okay.
You know, I don't use too much of those. And,
But you still got style.
Yes, ma'am. But anyway, that includes 2 sinks and 5 styling stations that will be put in the ground level of the what we call the G wing over there right now. So that'll be a temporary service. We have to run some electricity to those, but all the equipment that came in, so we're preparing to do that.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions on that? 702. You have in front of you the student suspensions. We had to add a few, there were a few omitted, and there were also a few other items omitted, and today we updated that. So what is shown in your, on your agendas now is the updated version. So we apologize for any errors that were on there.
Board members, any questions or comments for Dr. Hoden? Thank you for that update.
Thank you.
Okay, down to finance, 8.01.
So finance, my chief finance officer is not with us due to the other illnesses that are going on in the community. So she has those reports listed on board docs. I would ask you to review those. There was nothing that was majorly outstanding that I'm aware of. And so if you have questions regarding anything that's posted on board docs, I would ask that you email myself and Ms. Laconage so we can answer your questions. But she is not able to be here to answer your questions this evening. You can ask me and I'll do my best, but she's probably more of an expert on it than I at this point.
If you want to know any figures, just ask him. Board, do you all have any questions on the financial reports? Okay, update on accountability.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I have a couple of items that you've been provided memos on and some little items placed at your place tonight. The first one is the Program of Studies memo. This is something that we do for information to you, just so you have that for your constituents when you're talking to them about what offerings are available at Amherst County High School. And we do a memo that shows the changes, and we also have you a copy of next year's Program of Studies. A couple of changes we've made have been in the name changes because the state has changed specific names. We also added several AP classes to provide additional opportunities for our students. And then, of course, in our career and technical education field, we were approved for the Early Childhood Education Services Board program. That application has been submitted. So we're waiting on approval for that one. But the cosmetology, if you'll actually see all of that, level 1, 2, and the level 1 and 2 for the prerequisites has been approved by the Board of Education for the state. And we've placed that into the Program of Studies for the upcoming school year. Mr. Maddox and Stephanie Mullenkamp have worked very hard with the administrative team at the high school, Mr. Crawford, to pull together some great opportunities for our students. So we hope to continue that.
Madam Chair? Just one quick question. I was wondering if there's any word on the sign language, offering that as a course yet?
That has been placed in an application process. So we're getting towards that. We have not heard anything back from the Virginia Department of Education.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. The next item is Toys for Tots Literacy Program, and you should have this wonderful little book at your place. So you have a memo that explains it. Each year, Toys for Tots works with Amherst County Public Schools, and they offer us a wonderful array of children's books that are very similar to what you have in front of you. That one is can be used at kindergarten or first grade. And what they do is provide us books of all interest, nonfiction and fiction, as well as readability level, pre-K all the way through 5th grade. And they give us one for just about every student in the division. And we supplement that each year. We purchase it covers usually pre-K all the way through 3rd and some of 4th. And then we purchase, so remaining, all of our fourth graders can get it, and our fifth graders can too. And so next week at every single elementary school, there'll be tables set up, there'll be some cocoa, and kids can come in and they get to choose their own books. Our reading specialist, Ms. Wheeler and Ms. Matheny, have worked tirelessly to get the books into the hands of the children before they leave for their winter break. So they'll have that as a gift, as a parting gift for the semester. So that's just something that we look forward to, and so do the children. The next is the Emergency Connectivity Fund. Mr. Joe Goldman has placed for you just information. We receive emergency connectivity funds over the last 2 years, I want to say, and what we are required to do with that funds. So he is placed in here. I asked him to just kind of give you a ballpark figure of what the technology department has done, and they have worked tirelessly. 1,515 students received Chromebooks, and those weren't white gloved. Those were just, you pack them out of the box and you put them in the case, and it's a lot of hands-on that he and his staff do to get those ready for our children, as well as all of the 415 that were the touch screens that we were able to provide there. And then, of course, our information that went out to staff as well, laptops and items there. So we were able to get a large quantity of our technology and our devices for our staff and our students through this Emergency Connectivity Fund, which was very nice. Any questions on that? And he's in the back if you have any questions. Okay, the final thing, and I'm going to try to do double duty here tonight, is the ESSER 3 update. So this is the ESSER plan that comes before you every 6 months. And on our website, under What's News, is a link that takes you to the ESSER page where all of our grants, actually it's the CARES page where all of our grants are listed. On that page is a copy of the original plan that was implemented by Dr. Wells and myself back in 2020-2021 school year. And each 6 months we have to update that particular plan, post it to where the public can comment on it, and then provide you with that information, as well as any changes or redirections that we get from you that we put into place. So this is our 6-month regular update to you. I will tell you that this is the first time that we've had public actually go onto our website, submit the public comment form, and I would just like to give you some information on what the public has said. You have a copy of that, I believe, at your place, yes, where it speaks specifically about addressing academic needs at the middle schools, closing the learning gap. It talks in several of them about school security, as well as some metal detectors, school uniforms, and these are things that our community has provided, they've answered questions and provided that input on. It also talks about the need to hire more reading specialists and math specialists at the secondary level, as well as putting a plan for clubs, which I think Mr. Crawford has that, into our secondary schools. And then also, along with the safety concerns in there, it was addressed to for us to look at the amount of glass on the entrance of some of our elementary schools. So a large information that came from our public that we were very excited to get. This is the first time we've seen them talk about it. The plan itself, the only thing that we changed or that we updated here was specific to the spending piece of it. At the very initial plan, we had where it was set aside for 20% of the $7 million that we received that would go to learning loss. We have actually spent or have encumbered or ready to plan to spend 32%. So that amount based on what your request was at our last 6-month review, to focus more on the actual direct needs of students in the classroom. So we have done that in several areas, which bumped up our amount percentage from 20% to 32%. We also keep the public comment open for anybody at any time. We download that monthly, so if there are additional public comments, we'll forward those to you as well. And I'll answer any questions that you have on that particular piece. There is a second piece that I have to talk about as well.
And this is updated every 6 months?
Yes, ma'am.
And this update will occur on when?
So now that you have been provided information and the board and the public has been provided opportunity to comment, this is the change that will go up on the website probably tomorrow or Monday, and then they will be able to comment on that. So they'll get to comment on, did we use the funding of that moving from 20 to 32% in the right manner that was addressed previously?
And then those concerns and comments can be considered when it's updated again?
Yes, ma'am.
In 6 months?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
The next portion is and I'm kind of filling in for Ms. Lukanich, who has done a great job on tracking all of our spending. So the plan that we have encompasses multiple grants. It encompasses our GEARS grant that we initially got that did all of our health mitigation, our additional custodial staff, I don't know what you spend it on, William, but we're good.
All of the cleaning supplies and all that type
The
of
things that
stuff.
went on the floor.
All the little stickers and.
Yeah. So that money, as well as ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and then ESSER 3, which were divided out among learning loss, social emotional learning, additional personnel, additional bonuses, and then HVAC systems and renovations. So there's multiple. This particular plan that you now have, it's called the ESSER 3 spending plan. It only deals with that 7 million, or that, I believe it's the 7 million that focuses specifically on this particular ESSER 3 grant. So there's like 5 different grants. The spending plan only addresses one of those grants. And it goes through, how do we post that to the public? How do we get input back from it? What groups have we provided information to and we have reached out to seek input from? That is all listed in this, as well as the learning loss piece that goes through very specific information on how we're addressing instructional needs in the classroom. It also, at the very back of it, talks about what positions have been hired, where we're placing where we're meeting instructional needs. And then on the very last page, it identifies the actual budget of where it addresses. Does it address learning loss? Does it address something other than learning loss? And we've tried to focus it completely on learning loss. What is budgeted for those specific areas, the amount that has already been obligated, how much we've already spent, and then what is remaining to be spent in the grant before September 2024. And I'll take any questions you may have on that, or you can email myself, Dr. Wells, or Ms. Lukanich.
Board, do you have any questions for Dr. Norman at this time? Thank you, Dr. Norman.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Now it's time for 10.01, update on human resources.
All righty. Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, good evening. Now that Dr. Norman's given you plenty of reading material, I will jump into my section, and I have our most recent vacancy update for your review at your place. That should be the only, well, that's one of the documents that you have available. So I'll take any questions that you have regarding that document. I will say that I'm encouraged because we are now at that juncture where we have December graduates, and our wonderful university partners are forwarding emails to from all the December graduates and their content areas. And at least some of the universities look like they have a broad range of candidates, so we will begin emailing tomorrow, reaching out and encouraging people to apply. So that's hopeful. But
Questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gallagher.
okay, thank you. Next, I want to give you an update on the school calendar. We will have a school calendar. We'll get one proposed. As you all are probably aware, because I sent a survey out recently, we put out a survey that kind of represented a compromise from the previous two drafts that were sent out. In November, we submitted a draft A and a draft B. The draft A ended earlier at the end of May, and draft B was more reflective of our current calendar structure. Of the respondents, for which there were 319, 63% of them selected draft A, which was the shorter version. Within that calendar, however, there were still concerns among those respondents of not having a full winter break and a few other pieces. That was the primary one right there. 37% responded for draft B. They wanted to have more frequent breaks throughout the course of the year was the reason why they went with that. And I will say that is still a concern that people do have with going to a limited calendar. So taking all that input, the calendar committee reviewed that and came up with a compromise. We still wanted to try to do our best to end in May. So what you see in front of you, well, you don't see in front of you, you see the 3 draft calendars, I believe, is what you have in front of you. Calendar C, that draft is our compromise calendar. And what we did there was try to remove 5 days that would allow us to get down to the ending in May, but still uphold the priorities of the division as well as our educators' instruction as well as our teachers' needs. So on calendar C, Tuesday, October 10th was changed from fall break to an instructional day. We had 2 fall break days. We pulled one of those. Monday, November 6th was removed. That was a PD day and changed to an instructional day, so that removed 1 division-wide PD. Tuesday, January 2nd was removed as a site-based staff development and changed to an instructional day. That's probably the area I've gotten the most feedback on thus far on the new calendar. People like that transition back in. However, this does provide for 2 full weeks plus a Monday. And we have to kind of give somewhere if we're going to end in the end of May. Friday, June 7th, no, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Friday, March 8th, we removed the teacher workday and changed it to an instructional day there. So that was a workday, a teacher workday removed. Friday, June 7th was also a workday, but it was the last day of the calendar. It was after instruction was over and it was for teachers. And unfortunately, we'd love to have that time afterwards to get grades done and all those things. But in order to end in May, we removed that, and we would hope people would work diligently to get their things accomplished. If not, we did actually, as you can see, we've added, now we went from 12 professional development and work days. It now has 12 where it used to be 16. So the professional development work days were reduced from 12 to 16, but what was increased were discretionary days, and I'll talk about those. We had 4 previously, we now have 8. Discretionary days mean that teachers have 8 days within their contract that they can do. They're there for activities after school, for staff meetings before school, for other activities to participate. So if you have a 200-day contract, you really are only working 192 days, and you have 8 days of discretionary time so that you can do all those things that we expect of you to do to participate and be a part of the community. So that's actually helpful to the staff when you look at that. So we just felt like these revisions created a compromise that hopefully works and still provides what we need for our instruction for our students and doesn't give that up, but also provides enough breaks that there's no significant long periods of instruction where they don't have at least a teacher workday or a planning day to catch up and make sure we're kind of recharging and so forth. So that's what we have out there. I hope you all can take a look at it, and please do feel free to give input to that, which was emailed out to everybody. So do you have questions about that process? I hope I've explained that well.
Mr. Gallagher, I think you explained it well. I really liked the calendar. I think it was very responsive to the comments. I just want to go back to the discretionary days from 4 to 8. What do teachers use those for, and are they documented?
So they have not been documented for some time. They may have been in the past. It's been a while, as far as I'm concerned, or know about. They're used, basically, they would have been the work days, PD days that are in the calendar. The 2 PD days, the 2 teacher work days that were removed, those in essence are those now discretionary days because we moved it back.
But-
And it really is for time when they are going to parent-teacher conferences, they are going to after-school activities, night reads, things we expect our teachers to participate in. And I will say that, responsible individuals that are part of that community, they do show up and do those things. We have not recently documented to verify and hold people accountable to put that time in. This does not account for all the time teachers put in anyway in the evenings and weekends. That's not what that's meant for. This is truly for activities, for showing up, for being present outside of your contract time, so that you don't have that expectation without being compensated for it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gallagher.
You're very welcome. So lastly, I told you at the last board meeting that we would be holding our new teacher forums, and I think I've told you in the past that I really love those opportunities to hold those forums because we get to hear from our new teachers and find out everything. We sit down with them, we let them know that this information, we're not going to take notes by name. We want good, honest feedback from our new teachers on all the things that are going well for them, all the things that have been challenging for them, all the supports we provided during new teacher orientation. Those things have been provided along the way with induction, the support they've received from administrators, how's the mentor program going, what suggestions do you have to give us feedback on how we might get better. So it really is an authentic and genuine opportunity to hear from them. We held the elementary new teacher forum so far, and I will be holding the secondary new teacher forum in early January to get information from those folks. But I do kind of like to touch on and reflect on the themes that we hear back. And those themes are not all to give you just the rosy stuff and all what's good, but to give you the areas for growth as well, as documented by our new teachers, which also gets shared with our administrators so they understand kind of how they're perceiving their time here with us. So some of the positives that they indicated, they've appreciated the new teacher orientation. Now, if you remember, that's 7 days we've been doing. There's always opportunities to determine if we want to go back and make that back to 5 days. Some divisions only have 1 or 2 days, but what we've done is made that very valuable to them. Some of the things that they've liked about that orientation is not only it's been beneficial, instructional, but it's also given them time in classrooms, which they asked for in their previous forums, and we've given them more of during that orientation process, and they've appreciated it. And of course, they love the bus tour. They typically reflect on that. Their mentors and their veteran teachers who are not their mentors, who are supporting them, seem to have been very helpful for them. They felt supported, valued, and welcome. That had supportive teams, built relationships. Seeing progress of the students has been really great for them. And they commented on the building level and division level supports, like the specialists that they're in the schools from the central office, for example, that are there for non-evaluative measures, but truly there to just go in and help and provide them supports, and those within their buildings as well. So those could be, their division, or their department leads or their administrators and so forth pushing in. And effective communication from building and division level. Now, areas for growth, more training on classroom management, managing challenging behavior. That's a frequent trend in which we've heard that, and we do have plans actually we do cover that, but we actually have plans for next year to increase that focus area. So I appreciate hearing that from them. How to work with difficult or upset parents, and just how to communicate sometimes to help diffuse situations and build connections. More professional development for lesson planning and time to meet with mentors. Sometimes they have a difficult time finding time to meet, and pairing mentor assignments that are similar in nature. Some of the struggles have been the post-COVID achievement gaps that they work to overcome. And sometimes several have indicated that there's been a lot of emails as a new teacher that they didn't anticipate getting the volume of emails that they get and having to respond to that. So it becomes time management. So good to hear these things so we know and we can share with principals where we need to also be mindful of getting better. 2 of the comments, I always like to look for something that stood out to me that makes me happy, but 2 of the comments I received, I look forward to being here for years to come. Certainly like to hear that. And our community supports education was another comment that I received, and I appreciated hearing that. So I will post you on the secondary new teacher forums in January, and that's all I have.
for doing that. Sounds like a wonderful opportunity and good information.
Madam
Board,
Chair, quick question. For our new teachers, they're usually younger, fresh out of college. And if they're so happy, is there any way we can come up with some type of incentive for them to go out and bring their friends to come work for us to fill up some of these empty spots?
Yeah, we don't currently have like a finder's fee type of a thing like that in place at this point in time. Like, and we could consider that. It's been brought up before, and there's been some reasons why, we haven't had people recommend, like, that process of who recommended them. Quite honestly, if their friends are out there, we're trying to recruit them as it is, and I'm not sure who's out there to bring in.
Stalk on their Facebook pages?
But, hopefully, we are going to reach out and do a great job of looking to try to secure some of these December graduates that are coming out. But that idea has been discussed, and it has not been put into place in the past. Always something we can revisit.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
now we are down to items from student representatives.
So before you get started, Evan, I do want to make a comment regarding this. So Evan, we had several students apply for the Presidential Scholars Competition. It's a regional competition for superintendents in Superintendent Region 5. And Evan was one of the students who submitted an application. And I'm proud to say that out of 20 different school divisions in Region 5, he is one of 2 students that was selected to represent Region 5 in the state for the Presidential Scholars Competition. So Evan, congratulations on that, and job well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Evan, when you talk with us, I know you have things to say, but maybe you can share a little bit of information about that with us as well,
About what?
Oh,
about your representing us in Region 5.
Yes, when I heard about the scholarship, I was very excited, and honestly, I didn't think I had much of a chance, considering it's the entire state, and a lot of people competing, and I'm very honored and happy to represent us.
Thank you very much. We're very proud of you.
And more about what's going on right now with the school. It's a big crunch time, last couple weeks before the end, and there's a lot of Christmas spirit, a lot of things, events going on before the new year. My family, while I was sick, went out and got the Christmas tree from the FFA event. They were selling them, and it was a great time from what I heard. The Amherst Parade and also the Lynchburg Parade, where I was in, I'm a little bit biased towards Amherst Parade, but I had to fulfill my duties as a college rep and going there. And yeah, it was phenomenal. We got track, both indoor track and basketball starting up. And I saw Mr. Pfister in a funny costume. I can't remember who he was dressed up as, but yeah, it was a pretty cool time. And I'll pass it over to my fellow representative, Fatima. Finish the rest. So I don't miss
My name's Fatima Grace. I just wanted to highlight the National Honor Society. Ms. Stinson, as well as our student officers, have provided many different volunteer opportunities, some including the fair, the Apple Harvest Festival, tutoring, gardening opportunities, the Little League football games, and then making Christmas cards and sending them to the troops. And then, as Evan mentioned, we are also really excited for all the events coming up with this month regarding the holiday season. On Tuesday and Wednesday, they had the Winterfest at the high school where the community got to come out and make Christmas cards and different crafts. And like he said, Mr. Pfister was dressed up as Santa, and there was Mrs. Claus and the Grinch, and that was just a really good time to see everyone come together. And then we are also having a senior breakfast this coming week, where we're gonna have the opportunity to take pictures with Santa and all be together for breakfast, which I think will be really fun. And then also Iron and Diamonds is presenting the Grinch. So just all different Christmas events going on that I'm really excited about because I just love Christmas, and I think it's a good way to keep students engaged and involved.
Thank you.
Now Superintendent's matter.
It's my turn. All right. Madam Chair, members of the board, so a few items that I had on my agenda tonight. And first is discussing the legislator's visit and the JLOC report. So the legislator's visit, We had Senator Peake and Delegate Campbell present from the state legislature. We had Jeremy Bryant, the acting county administrator, Drew Wade from the Board of Supervisors from the county. We had Sarah McGuffin and Mike Driscoll from the town of Amherst. And again, we had Ms. Thompson, Ms. Ligon, Ms. Berg, and Ms. Justice from the school board present. And I really felt it was a positive meeting. I think that they heard what we were trying to get across to them as far as what our needs are and what some of our concerns are. And I really was appreciative of the fact that Senator Peake was actively engaged and asking a lot of questions. So hopefully he'll take that information to Richmond when they go to general session in January and fight on our behalf on some of these issues we talked about. As far as the JLOC report, I cited that several times in my presentation, and you have a copy of that at your place if you so choose to read it. It's about 60, 70 pages of fun reading, but it does give you good information about the state and where we are. And this was a report that is it's funded through the General Assembly, and they send us a lot of questions and things across, and we have to, we complete our questionnaires for that, and they compile it, and it's good general information regarding the state and where we are. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. We also had recently went to the VSBA convention in Williamsburg. Had the pleasure of driving Ms. Ligon down to Williamsburg. We had for the early bird session and the regular session. Ms. Thompson, you were able to join us remotely, and Ms. Justice was able to join us from the last day of the session. Again, I thought the session was very informative, and we had a good time there. On a personal note, they had a 5K race, and I finished third in my age group and 7th overall in a little race, and I was first in Region 5, by the way. I beat the superintendent from Bath County in the race, so I'm the Region 5 champ anyway. From the Superintendent's Advisory Council, we've been meeting monthly, and at first we started working on lesson plans, and they kind of we've kind of presented that to our principals and staff, and I mentioned last month where I went through all the schools and talked about lesson planning, the importance of lesson plans, and now they're starting to work on lesson plan templates, and so they're actually working on several different templates for staff to use. We're not going to dictate a particular template needs to be used as a division. Principals may, but as a division we're not, but we want to give teachers options of different templates they can use in their lesson plan development. So that is taking place now as well. From the Diversity Council, we have opted on 3 main areas of focus. We have academics, human resources, and behavior. The past couple years, there's been a focus on academics and human resources, but the committee wanted to add behavior, looking at behavior to what we're doing now. So we're now we're trying to transition from the planning and I guess gathering data into the implementation phase of what we're trying to do. So one part of this process is the academic team is going to host a future night at each elementary school in March. The purpose of these events is for parents, students, and their families to learn about the future pathways available in the division and how can they set their feet on the right pathway as early as elementary school. Because we all know that if you want to go to gov school or you want to go in some of these other programs, that really starts taking effect in 4th and 5th grade as to what programs you're placed in, whether the advanced math or not. So when you get your algebra in middle school and you're on the right track for that. So we need to notify parents of this because sometimes they don't think about it until they're a junior, maybe a sophomore in high school. By then, if they're not on the proper track, if they haven't taken those classes in 6th grade, 7th grade that they need to have, they really won't qualify, or they'll have to take additional classes in summer school and things like that to meet the requirements of the gov school or some of these other programs. So we want parents to understand what they need to do and start working with them at an earlier age. So we'll be going to all the schools, and we'll have some food for them to eat, and we'll have some dinner, and we'll have presentation to give. So we're at Amherst Elementary on March 2nd. We're at Central on March 9th. We're at Elin on March 14th. We're at Temperance on March 16th. We're at Amelon on March 21st. And we're at Madison Heights on March 28th. So I can give you those dates again. I'll email those to you so you'll know. And as we get closer to March, but I just want you to be aware of what we're doing. And we'll start advertising this here pretty hard moving forward. But really, I think it's going to be a good program for our parents, and hopefully we'll get a good turnout at each of our schools. We decided to do it at each school so the parents will maybe feel more comfortable coming to their school versus a general common location that they may not feel as comfortable going to. Historical positions is the next thing I want to talk about, and Brittany, if you could pull that one up, I'd appreciate it. So, that's it. Okay. So what I want to hit here a little bit, and you have this in your board docs, and I just wanted to just be aware that when the recession hit in 2008, 2009 timeframe, it really impacted the number of positions we had, because as funding dropped, we cut positions. So if you look at 2008, 2009, 2010, we lost we dropped 8.5 positions. In 2010, 2011, we cut 40 positions. 11 and 12, we added 3. 12, 13, we dropped another 39. And then we dropped 2, added 2, plus 1, minus 3, and so forth. Minus 11.5 again in 17, 18. And then we've added 14 since. So if you take the big pictures of 40 and the 39, that's 80 positions we cut, and we really only added about 14 positions since then. So when we talk about student achievement and student growth and what we need to do, well, if you look back at where we were compared to where we are now, we have, even though our student population has only changed maybe a couple hundred students, we're over 50, we're a lot lower in our staff. We're 70 staff less than where we were. So not that I'm going to ask you to add 70 staff to our budget this year, because that would be, an impossible ask. But we do need to be aware that when the state cut funding due to the recession, we did cut a lot of positions that have not been added back in. And so when we look at class sizes of 22, 23 to a class, if we added a couple teachers in those areas, we'd be down to the 18 to 20, which would be a much, I think, a better number as far as what we have, ratio of teacher-student ratio, than in the 20s. But again, it all comes from where we had to cut numbers back during the recession. And some of y'all were on the board kind of remember some of those decisions we had to make. I know at the high school, I had cut several when I was principal at the high school, just because we didn't have the funding. So just want you to be aware of that. So as we start the budget season, if I say, hey, we might need a position here or there, there's going to be some legitimacy to that. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you for the information. I think it's good for us to know.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So I've completed quarterly reviews. Met with every principal in the division, and they went through their data. They went through their SOL data, or testing data. And they've also gone through all their academic data, their attendance data, and their disciplinary data. Attendance data talked about student attendance as well as teacher attendance, so I made them dive into that a little bit and brief my senior staff on that. I feel they've gone very well. All the principals said that doing this actually made them become more aware of some of the things that they weren't really seeing, that they didn't think it was going to be. So it was a good process. It was the first time we've done this process, so it's a learning process for them. But I do feel it was a good process to go through, and we'll do this every quarter. So then the second 9 weeks, we'll do it again, and they'll have data to share with us as well on that. So I do feel it's been a very positive experience for them. They might have had a few extra headaches having to prepare the data. Mr. Crawford sitting there. But
Lost his hair.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
But I do feel that, in talking with the principals, they felt it was a positive experience, even though it may have been a little painful.
Dr. Wells, I know that we've talked about the importance of all of our students attending school, and that we're making a concerted effort on that. Based on the information you heard, are we making progress?
I think we are making progress, but we're not where we need to be. The big issue we have is the differentiating between, sometimes parents feel if I write the note and it's excused, we're okay. And it can be excused absence. And from a truancy standpoint of going to court, that is, yes, you wrote the note, you're not going to go to court because you have a note stating your child was sick or at the doctor. However, the state does not really care about whether the child was sick or not. They just know they can't miss more than 10% of the school year. So whether you wrote a note or whether the parent writes a note or not, if that student is absent more than 10% of the school year, they're considered chronically absent, which requires us to lose accreditation if we get to that magic number. So that's just where we are. We are seeing some improvement, but we're not where we need to be.
I'm glad we're seeing some improvement, because I know that if we're going to tackle learning loss, then we need to have our students in school, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for doing that.
The next thing I want to talk about is the literary loan program. This was just posted this week, and they've been advertised. So what this does, it allows school divisions to apply for construction loans, and it's a low interest rate, like 2 to 3% interest rate. So we're looking at this. I'm just asking, just letting you know, with your consensus to look into this further. I would need to talk to the county. The deadline for the loans to the application will be February 10th, but because it would add to debt service, I need to talk to the county about that. But it would be a way for us to get a loan to cover some of the other costs that we may have, construction costs that could be going on, whether it's other schools, whether it's the window replacements, things like that are coming in a little higher on budget. So it would give us another revenue source on that. So with the board's consensus, I would just like to say we'd like to move forward and just looking into this further. Okay. Okay, all right, thank you. They're also getting ready to release a grant program through the state for construction grants. It's not a loan, it's just a grant. And for us, it could cover 20% of a project. So we are also going to look into applying for those grants once we get the prices and things like that. But it'll cover 20%. So, for example, if the high school project, if that came in at a higher number, we could apply for that grant, and they could pay up to 20% of the total cost of the high school project if we're awarded the grant. So we're going to also be applying for that once it comes out. I think it's going to come out next week, according to what I've been hearing through the grapevine. But in the near future, that should come out. Upcoming events, we have the Career Day is Wednesday, January 14th at Amherst County High School, and I believe that's from 8 to 3. Is that correct, Mr. Crawford? And so what that's going to be is we'll have different members from the community there, businesses, et cetera, that are going to be there talking about student careers, and students will have a chance. We'll have the seniors and juniors, really all students, but I think the morning is going to be your juniors and seniors. And they're going to go through and talk to different individuals that are there, businesses that are represented. And then all students will rotate through. So if you want to, I'd encourage you to come by on the 14th, if at all possible, and take a look at what is going on. That is December 14th, next week, Wednesday, okay? And then we also have another event coming up, which is the Community Connections Dinner. And that's part of the Show Up Amherst initiative with Iron Lives and Education Foundation. And I'm going to ask Marie to speak for a second on that. She thought she was going to get off the hook tonight.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hey. He handled attendance so well, I thought I was off the hook. So we are planning a Community Connections Dinner, and this is going to be an event where we're inviting families, students, community members, anybody who wants to come out to have a nice hot meal. There will be food that's catered both to the children who show up and to the adults. It's going to be at the Madison Heights Community Center at 6 o'clock on January 19th. And there will be games. There will be a speaker that will do about a 20-minute presentation about communication. It'll be a fun night, a fun event where people can talk and get to know one another and just kind of get back together.
And one of the things we really want to emphasize with our parents and our community is, so often if you go to a restaurant, you see these things out and everybody's at the table on their phone, but nobody's really they're not conversing with each other at the table. They're all in their own little world. So we're trying to work on ways, as far as our Show Up Amherst and being part of our community, to work with people on how to have those conversations. What kind of conversations can we have? What kind of activities can we do at home? Might be a game we could play at home that could get people just interacting again versus stuck in the virtual world. So that's kind of one of the purposes of this as well. And then the last thing I have for you is that we're almost there for Christmas, and I want to wish everyone here a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I hope you have a great holiday break. And we'll be taking some vacation during the break, and hopefully we get some rest and everybody come back refreshed on January 2nd, and students come back on January 3rd to be present at school. All right, so we need our students back at school on January 3rd. So anyway, just wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. Now we're down to committee reports from school board members and individual items that you may have. Mr. Rossi, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to, yes, wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Some of the speakers and concerned citizens that came forward tonight, I like community input, and I hope that we represent our community well here on the board, and the Lions Club for doing those eye exams and volunteering their time and their services is just, it's a wonderful thing that the community feels well enough about the schools to help out, and hopefully the community as a whole turns out for the upcoming events. It looks like we've got a lot of new things planned. Dr. Wells, I was really impressed with the new things that you've come up with, and the Show Up Amherst initiative, and the way of getting the teachers engaged and the students engaged and everything. It always makes me so proud to be part of this community and as a member of the school board.
Well, I'll say I have a great team that comes up with all these ideas.
Yeah. I'm sorry for putting a little extra work on that last vote. And I think bringing that up with the opt-in is what the community wanted. I think that is going to, instead of a parent sitting back and just wishing that their child gets the education they're hoping they receive, that it gets them involved and to help bring them out into what their child is learning. And after sitting here tonight and learning that parents had the opportunity to come out and review any of the material at any time about any subject, any topic, that they had the ability to do that and take charge and take control of their child's learning, and for the school system to be that transparent, to put everything out there, really says a lot. It says a lot for the school, it says a lot for the district, and the administration for applying yourselves and opening yourselves up to take that, from the community and listening and putting in their input. It's not just one person controlling things here. It's us. It's we. It's the community. We're all in this together, and we're going to continue to move forward. And I think the momentum from the beginning of the school year is moving so fast and in great ways. It seems like, I know we were just here a month ago, but so much has happened, and so many good things have happened. And I just like to keep that momentum going, and everybody putting in those long hours and the hard work. It's really good to be a part of this. I really mean that. I really, really enjoy being a part of this. And I think that was it.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi. Mrs. Berg?
Yes, I'd like to say a special thank you to the Lions Club for all the eye screenings that they did for the school. Greatly appreciated, great asset to the community. And also to our community, or for our community comment, we had Mrs. Beck, Mr. Porter, Mrs. Martin, and of course, Sam. I'd like to thank everybody for all their comments. And also from the Toys from Tots, these books, I was glancing at it, adorable pictures. Thank you so much. And a special thank you to our student reps, Fatima and Evan, and congratulations to Evan for his accomplishments. And to all of the Amherst community and all of our staff, a very Merry Christmas and a blessed and Happy New Year.
Mrs. Burke. Mrs. Ligon?
Well, I'd like to echo what Ms. Berg said about happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and looking for a prosperous and happy New Year as we go forward. I've enjoyed everything tonight so far, and Evan, congratulations. And the Lions Club always so supportive of the school system, so we want to thank them for very important business that they're doing. As far as my report is concerned, we did have a lower board meeting yesterday, and at this time, Amherst has 4 young people at Laurel and Dr. Lewis and her staff are doing a wonderful job there. We did have a presentation yesterday on the SOAR program, SOAR, and that stands for Successful Opportunity for Achievement and Resilience. And this is a new program at Laurel, and each school division can, am I right, Dr. Wells, have two students there. And the goal here, let me just read this, easier to read than to try to figure it out, is to develop adaptive, flexible learners who acquire pro-social skills needed to access important qualities of life that bring meaning and fulfillment within their natural environment. So they're trying to teach young people to diffuse situations of anger and behavior, and we can't fix it, which I found out yesterday was interesting. You can't fix it, but you try to adapt a way of understanding it. And so this is a great program that is now part of Laurel, so we're excited about that. Also, the budget's been presented over there, and things are well at Laurel. We did approve for some additional pay raises for the TAs, just like any other organization. The TAs, we're losing them, instructional assistants, I think what we call them. So Dr. Lewis has come up and LCS has come up with the raise. As far as VSBA, Dr. Wells was correct. I enjoyed myself. Thank you for taking me down. I focused my attention this time on some of the mental health classes, and they're doing some of the same things that we're trying to do here in Amherst, not just for the students, but for the staff. So I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed, I went to one on teacher shortages, and there's not a real answer, but just coming out of that, trying to keep people happy in their environment, keeping them liking what they do on a long-term basis is what we're trying to do. But another good point was brought out that not just teachers, people are just changing jobs right now. They're finding that they want to do something different, some within a year, some within 5 years. And there's no secret when a person decides to move on to either growth or to go home, that you can't really stop that. So we're probably doing the best we can here to retain. And then, of course, yes, the pandemic, when people went, this is what was discussed, when people went home to work, not just teachers, but business people, they enjoy being in the basement with their own office and looking out the window and drinking a cup of tea. They may never come back to the establishment again. And so we have to realize that that did change, and changed our lives. And it changed staffing, not just in public education, but in other things. So those were two events, and I've been out and about with some sports activities. Very proud of the Lancers and all that they do. And Mr. Crawford is running a wonderful show up there, and he's in the middle of the parking lot, in the middle of the road the other night. I almost ran over. He was directing traffic. I told him I didn't know if I was supposed to get on a parade float or go into the school for the game, but things were such orderly fashion. So we thank everybody for everything that's going on, and once again, happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you, Mrs. Lakin. Mr. Terry?
Yes, so STEM board meeting was so long ago, I don't think it was in the last 30 days. Okay, I couldn't remember, but I didn't find it on my calendar, so we haven't had a meeting since. So, yeah, I'd like to bring up something that nobody has mentioned tonight, and Dr. Wells, you did a great job emceeing the parade. It was, if you've never been to the Amherst Parade, it's awesome. It's really good. So, yeah, I'd just like to echo a lot of what's already been said. You know, Merry Christmas to everybody. Let's have good holidays. Come back here in January and get things, get off on the right foot. Lions Club, I've had family members in the Lions before. They do a fabulous job. They support the community. They support the schools. They're out and about. They are Show Up Amherst. They are the originals. Our student reps, we love hearing what's going on at the schools. I did get to come up on Tuesday and flip a burger and a hot dog for the Winterfest. I am no cook. At this table, we all know who the cook is, and it's not me. But the FFA also, with the Christmas trees and wreaths, we went up and got a couple wreaths. You know, it's good to see those guys, you know, doing things for the community, being out there. And that was the first thing my wife, she put out a question to people, where can I get a live wreath? And the first place they said was go to the high school. So, you know, it's good to see those things available. Evan, congratulations on your scholarship. Good going. The new teachers coming out, Mr. Gallagher, hopefully we can get a few these new graduates that we can help join our team, so that'd be great. And I am proud to say I don't use Facebook very often, unless you're putting like a big fish that you call it, or, you know, where you've been hiking, or maybe something that my kids or my wife has put out there. So I don't see a lot of the rants that go out there. I'd be curious on getting a little bit more information, but hearing from a person instead of a Facebook post. So, and as far as the policy, you know, I don't think we would walk out of here tonight pleasing everybody. I think we do the best what we got. I believe we can make this work. Opt in, opt out. I think both will work. I just want to make sure that, you know, for parents who will now have to opt into things, please don't get to the end of the year and go, I can't believe they're not teaching such and such because they didn't remember to opt in. So I just want to throw that out there and make sure. But I believe both of them would work, so let's give this a shot and see how it goes. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Well, I want to say also, Fatima, welcome back. You have been missed, and congratulations to Evan as well. I do also want to thank the Marine Corps Toys for Tots for all of the books that they've distributed and continue to support our schools and partnerships, as well as the Lions Club. And I thought, how much more do they need for that machine?
4,100.
4,100. Surely we can do some online contributions or something. We got to come up with something there to help them. So looking forward to that goal being met and having a new machine. Also, the coming equipment for cosmetology. I know that's been waiting for quite a while, so that's exciting, and our students will really benefit from that. I'm also thankful for the increased funds from our ESSER grant going to learning loss. I think that's something that will affect all of our students and something that is greatly important. Also, I want to comment on the legislative meeting where our legislators were present, board members. I know you've listed them all, Board of Supervisors, and I know I'm missing some, but my point I want to make is it was a great meeting, and Dr. Wells did a wonderful job representing our challenges in a very positive way. We had some good dialogues. I just appreciate everything that you did to make that happen.
Thank you.
And for the students at the high school and the teachers that helped put together that wonderful breakfast. And thank you all for attending. That was great. Looking forward to the future night. I think that's a great idea and a great focus, something much needed to build that knowledge of those opportunities early. Also want to reiterate one more time, as I've done before, about the importance of attendance. We talk about accreditation, we talk about truancy, but my goal is that we talk about learning. And the best way for our students to learn is that they value education and that they're in school every day. So I hope that we as a community, as parents, as teachers, that we're focused on the quality of instruction and that we're focused on having our students there every day, because that's why we're here. Also, I want to assure our community that we are all working to provide a safe and secure and kind environment in all of our schools for our students. And I appreciate the comments. Sometimes they're not things we want to hear, but we need to hear. Sometimes they are things like, Mr. Sogar, I appreciate very much your comments and your support of the school. Having that balance helps us feel like we are a community and that we can face the challenges, but we can do it in a kind way, and we can do it in a way that our students will benefit. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Appreciate all of the public comments that were here. Mr. Porter, I know you're still remaining, so I'll say thank you to you as well, to your valuable comments. So just want to say thank you to everybody, and again, have a Merry Christmas.
So, Madam Chair, we need to move into closed session. So pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, it is recommended the board convene a closed meeting for the following A1 personnel matters.
Board, I need a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We are now in closed session.
And y'all have-